Now, because this was the tower guard, and then underneath, one level was the general's office, and there was an American flag, and they had clear views of everything, these people that were tower guards. So somebody saw what was going on, and the old man that was standing here, I think actually two old guys went down. One of them started coming at me from over here because it didn't listen for some reason. And the other ones did listen to me because I told them what to do. And then I just stood here and I froze and I stopped. Before it started coming at me, somebody shot it and it went down. So I think all the sirens were going off at this time. I just kind of went into, like I said, freeze mode. And I wasn't talking, and I was just standing there when one of the guys came up to me, and I think I was in shock, actually, because he was just standing there. I remember just saying words to me, but I wasn't really remembering what he said. So, there's surveillance everywhere, so somehow they saw that happening. After that, what they really were afraid of was they feared me. But they turned it around and made it seem like I was indebted to them then, to work for them, because this was still the initial stages, and they were being nice to mentally have you agree to do things for them. So they were just so nice after that, like, oh, we saved your life, blah, 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 you owe us. So as we got older, us kids that lived in here got possessive of each other. And were we prisoners of war? Affirmatively, yes. Because as teenagers, some of us were put through this Resident Evil barn. Then they brought animals over from Plum Island, certain dogs. And I remember at the end of my experiences in here, this back barn window had a large window back there. And I got to the point where I could push this woman through the window, jump down, and I remember chasing dogs in the back of this barn. So in this house here, they had us so drugged out of our minds, trying to engage primal instincts and all sorts of other things to knock us off our foundational base, our core, our center, bring out our altars, do and employ any type of tactics that they could to get us to worship our enemy. So we'd wake up in this White House here, and we'd hear the sound of a rooster for some reason. You could be like drooling on the floor. You'd wake up just filthy, smelling. You had dirt all over you, cuts. You had bare feet. I mean, you looked like a train ran over you. And then you hear a signal, get on with your day, and then realize maybe something that had happened the night before, because really they had us possessed sometimes, doing God knows what every night around this funny farm. So it felt like you'd wake up and there was like a wedge in your brain. But we were fighting these chains, and we were like Yeshua when he drew that line in the sand with everything they threw at us. Because somehow they eventually did get in, and then eventually we had to work to get them back out of our system. So when I'd wake up in this building here, my whole being would just hurt, and I was pained and drained, and I'd just look in the mirror and see my black eyes. There was a shared shower at the end of the hallway, and it took a long time to get back into your core and functionality and bring some light in, and just let that light bring in some sanity to the steering wheel. Because we were fighting this technology grid, whatever they had us meshed into here. And these scenarios, they put you in like a black dress. They wanted like a black priestess, like a queen or something. They wanted to hybridize the women. They wanted to breed you. Caspult was here when this was happening. And then Alpha was up here. This was up the top level here. You'd go back, and there was a little hallway, and there was a room in the back of this hallway here. They'd have orgies, shape-shifting, tell you what they were going to do with your fetuses if they did breed you. They did all sorts of things. Because, you know, even if they did get your fetuses, I guess, they could have used them to be sacrificed, taken them out of the womb at 3 months. Some could be used for scientific reasons, some hybridized, some used in the future to kill you. You know, whatever they could think of. They were running and telling us actually what they were going to do. They were sadomasochists. And then they brought in 2 girls from the north, which were me and 11, to counteract that because we were putting up a fight and we would not do what they asked. They brought in 2 girls from the south. And 2 boys from the north, 2 boys from the south, too. Which would be Carmen and Brandy. So they brought them in, and they wanted us to be jealous, to have a queen, to get this whole thing going that they wanted. And it did work out at first, but then I remember standing in the hallway here, and 11 snapped me out of it, and then I just didn't care anymore. And next time I wake up, I'm back in this white building one morning, and I hear Carmen's voice antagonizing me from the bathroom because I was singing Amazing Grace or something. So then I go in one of the rooms because I didn't know anybody was even up here, and she got me triggered and I bludgeoned her with something, and then next thing I know I'm fighting 3 big guys up here, get injected with something, and get drug out somewhere. So a lot of those activities stopped. I mean, because they were running us through these crazy scenarios here where, I mean, they would literally have ropes and they would be choking your clones to death. They had a video camera set up. They were recording all of this, all that the Nazis were doing. It was absolutely awful. But we could tell the difference, you know, because we know if we were in our conscious bodies or not. I mean, they could kill your clone 100 times and you still wouldn't do what they asked you to do. So those activities stopped, those heinous things. And, you know, really the passion of the Illuminati, from what I saw, was to have slave clones so that they could make you a golem and make fun of these things and have a village of their own. So they can feel, act, and think in their strong delusion that they are God. Because they're just inbred lunatics, the whole lot of them. You know, they just sugarcoat everything, so don't fall for it, people. If you're ever confronted with this type of psychological, spiritual warfare. Because when you're in these trapdoors, outside of the freedom and liberty of Christ, because they convince you that it's all your fault and your choice, that you get stuck here, just know that you can always repent and come out of it. Because God was always still there in these dark days, still listening, still caring, when I was trying to break through and punch through this matrix of evil that I was spellbound into. He was always on the other side, holding his hand out, always pointing me to the mirror and showing me and reminding me who I was and who he was and why I came here and how to get out of this hellhole, and that he was the only way out. So I kept having to believe that. And that faith brought me to the end, to where they couldn't entrap you more. So another thing that happened was I started fighting these yellow fruit, yellow suit type entities. They're kind of like the Queen's henchmen, because I had their DNA in me too. And Shungar actually told me, he kidnapped some of us and took us to the Virgin Islands, that he wanted me to think that he was my creator and all this stuff, and that he created me to wipe out this problem that even the royals had, because they had made the royals their slaves for too long. But that didn't go so well. It was me and Lane in the Virgin Islands and Dave Morrow and my sister. So then we got extracted and Shungar got apprehended. But that's another story. So these beings, they had like tall heads, but they were real short and stocky beings, and they wanted to alter time, change everything on Earth, so that these things were very hard to combat. The only things I've ever remembered having the complexities come out because of the sizes of their brains, and they emitted this type of acid that was really horrible, and it made your nose bleed. So you couldn't touch them, and it was like they could stand there, and they wore these black sunglasses, like MIBs, but they were above it, my bees, of course. And they could throw this tunnel of energy at you, just standing there, and their eyes looked just like glass shards came out of them. It's like they could throw a wind of knives at you, but you did not, that you could get cut with and then feel the burn of their acid. It's just very bizarre, but they could knock you on your ass, basically, without touching you because you couldn't touch them. They were so toxic and foul. Because yellow always meant shape-shifting at Montauk, and even the radar tower steps were red, then there'd be a yellow marker, indicator, visual cue, all of that was everywhere for training, markers, signals, all that stuff. So, we were too little to start out training in the big radar towers, so they started us out training in the watchtower here with the general. And the elite, they trade out in the Arctic regions, and they do all sorts of weird stuff out there. That's like black market stuff, but more of an intergalactic level. So let these truths remain evident that all wickedness, their time is short compared to what's to come. And God put us through this, the refiner's fire, to show us that we will endure to the end, and to show others how to endure to the end. Because if we couldn't escape these types of systems and dominations of control and the beginnings of the beast system and AI, we wouldn't be able to be the saints that are going to be standing on the shores of life with his seal on our foreheads, playing real heavenly vibrations of heart.